We are the weirdos, mister.
Girls, watch out for those weirdos.
We are the weirdos, mister.
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. So we are right in the middle of October, and today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite films about witchcraft, and that is The Craft, directed by Andrew Fleming. So The Craft stars Robin Tunney, Rachel True, Neve Campbell, and Fairuza Balk. This movie came out in the 90s, and basically, so if you guys have never seen The Craft, this, it is going to have, spoilers in it, so just a heads up on that. But if you haven't, definitely suggest you guys check it out. Like I said, it's one of my favorite movies about witchcraft, and basically, as far as, the plot goes, so you have Sarah, who is played by Robin Tunney. She's transferring schools, and she ends up meeting these three girls at this new school that they are, witches, and they think that Sarah will complete their circle. After completing a couple of smaller spells, though, the girl's lust for power begins to grow until one of them wants out because things start to become too much. So first off, like I said, this movie takes place in the 90s, and you instantly know that right away, just from the intro of this movie, because you have all of this crazy shit just happening. You have these explosions, you have, just the font itself, and just all this, this weird shit going on. Plus, just in the rest of the film, just between the clothes, has an amazing soundtrack, and just different things like that. So you can just tell this thing came out in the 90s, and that's one of the reasons why I absolutely love it. So early on in the movie, when Sarah moves over to this this new town, they go into the house, and you see the house is leaking and stuff like that. She's getting settled, looking around the house, and all of a sudden you get this homeless guy that just walks through the front door, and he goes up to Sarah, played by Robin Tunney, and he's like, "I got this snake for you," or something along those lines. And it's just super creepy. Imagine just going into your new house, and this guy just walks through the front door and has a snake in his hand. So it's just it just starts off, you're okay, what the fuck is going on here? And as Sarah, she starts school, she's kind of by herself, obviously, because she's the new girl to the school. And as she's in one of her classes, Bonnie, who's played by Neve Campbell, she's in the class as well, and she happens to look over and she sees Sarah, at her desk, and she has this pencil. She stands it up, and then she starts moving it around, and she's not touching it anymore. So Bonnie notices this, and she goes to tell the other girls about her, because she feels that Sarah is going to be the one to complete their circle. Sarah, though, she also ends up meeting a character by the name of Chris, who is played by Skeet Ulrich. Which was, was cool because you have Neve Campbell and Skeet Ulrich from Scream in this film as well. So she ends up meeting Chris, and, he's trying to, hit on her and everything because she's, the new girl in school. And, later on we end up finding out that he's, pretty much, he's a douchebag. But, she ends up, like, meeting him and kind of has, like, a little bit of crush on him. And then after that, and he tells her, he's like, "Hey, by the way, you want to keep away from those girls, they're like witches, and basically everyone's like afraid of them in school." But after, they're like hanging out or whatever, she ends up, talking to like these girls, and they ask her, or they invite her to hang out afterwards. And that's kind of how she formally, meets them all like in the film. One of my favorite things about the movie too, probably, it might be my favorite thing about the film, is just the character development with these, these group of girls. They all they have like, troubled past. So Sarah, you find out that she used to like cut herself. And then Bonnie, she has like these, these like really bad burns like all over her back, and throughout the film, you see her getting that like worked on, trying to, heal that up. You have Rochelle, played by Rachel True, and, at school, you see that she deals with, with racism from, a couple of these like, these other girls. And then, finally you have Nancy, and you just, see that she has a really shitty, home life. So all of these girls, they have, these troubled past. And it's just those little things, that little bit of extra detail that, makes you more invested in these characters that I really appreciate about this film. And I think that, once the girls, they all start like hanging out, and you see them at like, different ones like houses and just like doing different things. I love the chemistry between, these, the main group of characters, because you really feel like at this time that they are like really good friends and they would be hanging out and doing different things. And one of my favorite scenes in the film is definitely the, when they're all hanging out in the bedroom and they do the light as the feather, stiff as a board, just because that was a big thing like back in like the 90s and stuff growing up. And funny enough, like quick story for you guys, if you don't follow me on Instagram, a few years back, I went to Monster Mania in New Jersey, and they actually had a craft reunion. That's where I got, this poster signed here by like the cast. And then I also, so when I got like my photo op taken with them, I asked them to do the light as the feather, stiff as a board, and that I'll put that up right now. So yeah, so that was really cool. So that's like one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And so as these, as the girls, they're hanging out like more and more, like I said, Bonnie, she was the first one to kind of recognize, Sarah's talents. But the rest of the group, they start to realize that having Sarah around, they feel like they can do more. So they start kind of introducing her more to the craft throughout the film. And then, we have, Chris and Sarah, this is where you kind of find out that Chris is a douchebag. Because, Sarah, she doesn't want to, like sleep with him, at least like not like right away. And, Chris kind of like plays that off like, oh, like, yeah, like we slept together and she was just like a really bad lay. So he lies about it. And that, that obviously like pisses Sarah off. And that's what kind of like steers her, I feel like, more in the direction to want to start doing, more of the magic with the girls, in the film as well. And then, like at this point too, you also have another one of my favorite scenes in the films, one of the, the classic scenes, and you can see it right here on my shirt. So the girls, they're getting off the bus, and the guy, the bus driver, he's like, oh, like make sure to be careful of those weirdos out there. And Nancy, she looks up and she's like, we are the weirdos, mister. One of my, iconic line, one of my favorite scenes, and, it's just one of the classic scenes in the film, and it has several of those in here. And so you see the girls, they start to become, a little bit more obsessed with, with power, because they start doing these, these little spells, and they're working. Like you have, Sarah, she makes Chris obsessed with her, so he wants to start like carrying around like her books and following her like everywhere she goes, and he's just like, oh, I'm really sorry for the way like I treated you before. And so little things like that. Rochelle, she the bully at school, she makes like her hair like start falling out. So these little things, they start working, so the girls are like, okay, they want to start doing more and more, bigger things as far as like magic goes. And that's where things kind of start going wrong. So, it's at this point that, Sarah starts to see that, especially like Nancy, she's really becoming like obsessed with wanting, more power. And she can kind of see that, and she's like, hey, you know what? I think things are going a little bit too far. And, what you put out into the universe, you get back, 3 times or something along those lines. And, so she's worried that things are going to start going south. And you see, in the film that things start to go that way. So she's like, yeah, you know what? I kind of want out of this. And Nancy, obviously she doesn't take too kindly to that. And she's like, if you want out, in the olden days, like witches would like, kill people that betrayed each other, like in their covens, like later on in the film. But yeah, basically, she kind of gets like, pissed at Sarah. So it causes some conflict, between Sarah and the rest of the group. And one of the instances where you see like things start to backfire is like with Chris. He becomes like obsessed with Sarah, like to a really, really like, far like degree. And basically he kind of like almost like attacks her. And, she tells the rest of the girls about this. And Nancy, she gets pissed, which I mean is understandable. But she kind of takes it to the next level and goes to, this party, finds Chris, and she ends up killing him. And, that's kind of really like the breaking point for Sarah like there. And she's like, yeah, I don't want anything, more to do with this at that point. And then finally, the end of the film, you get the final showdown between, Sarah and Nancy, or, like the rest of the other girls like as well. They come to, to Sarah's house, and you get that really like iconic scene where, they're making Sarah see like all this like, pretty fucked up shit, like where you see, bugs and snakes and stuff like that all around her house, and telling her to like, to kill herself. So they kind of have like their final showdown. In the end, Sarah ends up winning because, you find out by the end of the movie that Sarah was the one who was like really the one like true like witch. So by the end of the movie, when everything, kind of wraps up and, she's defeated like Nancy and she's like in the mental hospital, and the other 2 girls, they come back to apologize, and you find out that Sarah actually still has her powers. So yeah, I mean, this movie, it's like it's really grown on me over the years. I've always liked it for sure. But especially like recently, it's really become one of my favorite films. Like I said about like witchcraft, it just being born like a 90s kid like myself, it just screams 90s. So another reason that I absolutely love it. And I think that, as far as like the performances go, you get really good performances from all the main characters, even, Skeet Ulrich, Chris himself. So just, overall between the soundtrack, the actors, the performances, the story, character development, it's just like one of my, favorite movies from the 90s, like for sure. So as far as like a score goes, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Like I said, I absolutely love it. If you guys have never seen The Craft and, you're into movies about, like witchcraft or even like, films like kind of like, like Heathers, Mean Girls, things like that, I think that you'll definitely like appreciate The Craft. So I highly suggest you guys check it out. So have you guys, my question for you, have you guys seen The Craft? I'm sure a bunch of you probably have. If you have, let me know what your thoughts are down below. What are some of your favorite movies about witchcraft? I want to hear, what some of your favorite movies are too. So let me know down below in the comments. If you guys are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button as well as the bell button next to it. That way you get notifications for all my new videos. Give the video a thumbs up. And as always, guys, please make sure to check back for more Pop Culture with Pat.